Hi, I'm Sharon Bill. Welcome to my Theory Tuition series where we're working through each of the ABRSM theory grades. There are lots of resources available to help you on my website. If you visit sharonbill.com, you'll find some free PDF information sheets. They're available in US letter or A4 and they accompany each step of this series. There's also a page with links to all of my YouTube video tutorials, and you can access information about the books that I have available. I've written How to Take Your ABRSM Music Theory exam. It's full of tips and techniques on how to best prepare for your exam and also how to best make use of the time when you're in the exam room. So if you visit sharonbill.com, you'll find it's all there. If you can give me a like, that'd be really great, and subscribe to my channel to keep updated. And so let's move on to the next section, which is on page 27. It begins. We're going to look at intervals, just at the bottom of that page in your grade 5 theory and practice workbook. And I refer to this as section G. So if you want to find your PDF sheets and turn to section G, you'll find everything that we need to know there. In many ways, there's nothing new at all here, and so you still need this information that we had before in grade 4. And so always your lowest note is your key note. That's the way you think about working the interval out, regardless of what your key signature actually is. However, now we can also exceed an octave. So if we just turn over the page, page 28, you can see here, there we go, that we can exceed an octave. So we've got a ninth, which is an octave plus 1, a tenth, which is an octave, plus 2, and so we call that a major second, a compound major second, a compound major third, or a major ninth, 10th, 11th. So we've added octave plus 1, octave plus 2, octave plus 3, octave plus 4, and so on. And so really I always find it's more helpful to think of compound major second rather than major ninth, because that way you can still remember that fourths, fifths and octaves are all perfect, rather than having to learn new numbers and know that an 11th is perfect, a 12th is perfect, and so is a 15th. Don't forget that's because that's the octave is 8, and then plus 1 is the next one, 9, 10, 11. That's why the number only goes to 15, not 16, because you've already counted your octave already. So if you just sort of perhaps just have a little read through this information. However, there's nothing really new there, and so it's just cracking on with the usual intervals, but sometimes you'll have to work out an extra octave as well. So I would choose to use the compound version wherever possible. If they're asking you to work it out and they've given you the number, that's easy enough, but when you're naming an interval, I would say compound. And so have a go at exercise 1 and just see how all of this is exactly the same as it was before. You just might be adding an extra octave into the mix. And so here they've given us this example here. So here, first of all, half of the question is that it's a 6. So 1, 3, 5, 6. Again, space, space, space. Or you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't forget, you always count the bottom note as 1. If you forget that and count 1 on the next note up, you'll be a step out all of the time. Your intervals will be a degree out. So we've got 1, 3, 5, 6. Now C, if we think of this bottom note is our key note, C to A would be major, but then the top note is raised, so we've made the major interval bigger. And if you remember from the previous grade, a major interval made bigger is augmented. So this becomes an augmented 6. So that's the 2 parts of your marks there. And so here, for this next one, we need a compound perfect fifth. So to get the compound element of the question addressed, if you just jump your octave and give yourself another octave, so we jump to this D, and now we need the fifth, 1, 3, 5 takes us to here. So rather than being 1, 3, 5, this A here, we've jumped an octave up. So I always just give myself the keynote again, just do it lightly. I've done it a bit more heavily there than I perhaps would. You can always rub it out though afterwards. And so that's our compound fifth. We now need to make that perfect. So D natural to A natural is perfect, and therefore D flat to A flat is also perfect. You may find it easier to refer to a keyboard picture. Let me just see if I can find that. There we go. And that will help as well. So we know that D to A is perfect, therefore D flat to A flat is a parallel interval. That is also perfect. So it helps to visualise it on a piano keyboard. So if you want to just go ahead and try the rest of this exercise 1 now, just be careful with the changing clefs as well. So I'm hoping that you've had a go of this yourself, and so let's carry on and have a go of this together. So we need an octave first of all. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 8. That takes us from G to G. And then to diminish that, now G sharp to G sharp of course would be perfect. And remember, a diminished interval is smaller than a perfect. And so G sharp to G sharp would be perfect, so this stays as G natural, so that in itself is already acceptable. Or if you want to just add a natural sign, we'll pop it in brackets just to show that you've thoroughly thought that through, that is also acceptable. Now here they've given us the extra than an octave number, so we'll just count those numbers first of all. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 is the space, 10 is the line. So we've actually got from F to A. So actually that's a compound third. So we can just work it out that way. Now F to A would be major. A minor interval is made smaller. And so we need this to be an A flat. And A flat is part of F minor scale. That's another way of thinking of that as well. And so the next one, we first of all need to count the interval. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So we've just exceeded the octave plus 1. And so really what we've got is a second here, and we need to make that major. So if we count our lowest note as the key note, B, or it would here if we jump the octave, B major would have C sharps as part of the key signature. It's always helpful to have your key signatures, your circle of fifths all written to hand, and that way you can keep checking what that key signature would include. And B major would have a C sharp, and so we need to add the sharp to make that a major interval, part of the major scale. And so let's go on to the next one. So the first thing is we need to get the interval. 1, 3, 5. And so now we need this to be an augmented. So let's just think about this without the sharp. G to D would be perfect. Therefore G sharp to D sharp would also be perfect, but we need it to be bigger, so we need to raise that. So G sharp to D double sharp would be augmented, because we've raised the D sharp again and made it into a double sharp to augment that perfect interval. Remember, in perfect intervals there is no major minor, it just goes augmented or diminished, because it's the same in both major and minor. So now we have the question of a compound minor seventh. So let's just add the octave first. So this is a B, so we need to jump up an octave. 1, 3, 5, 7, 8 to this B here. That is now our starting point. And now we need a seventh, so counting this one again. 1, 3, 5, 7 takes us to the A. Now B flat major has a key signature B flats and E flats, so A natural is part of the major scale, and so to make it minor we need to make it smaller, and so we need to flatten that. Let's have a go at this next one. Again we've got a compound interval, so let's just add our octave in straight away. So we're working from this D, or D sharp, of course the accidental still carries, and now we need the 6th, counting this first again, this tonic again, 1, 3, 5 is the ledger line, and then 6th. So here we go. So D to B would be major. However, the lower note has been raised, and so when the lower note has been raised, it actually makes the interval smaller. So D to B would be major, and then we've made the interval smaller by raising the lower note, and so therefore that is now already minor because we've made that interval smaller already by the lower note being raised. So that is now a compound minor 6th. It's just easier to think of that than thinking what is in the key of D sharp minor. It's a bit of an impossible thought process. So we've worked without that, found out that D to B is major, and then we've raised the lower note and made the interval smaller, and therefore we know it's minor. So here we go. Now if you're not confident with these clefs, you can always just write your letter names next to them. So at the present moment we've got C, D, E, that's an E. We have a key signature of B flats and E flat, so actually that's an E flat. And now we need to make a second, so 1, 2 takes us to F. And so E flat to F would be major. We need to augment that and make that bigger, and so we need to raise that second note, and so that becomes F sharp. So E flat to F sharp is our augmented second. And then this last one, we now have a compound diminished third. So we need to first of all think of our extra octaves. So we go from this G to this G. Bear in mind it's a G sharp because of our key signature, and now we need to find the third. 1, 2, 3 takes us to B, so there's our compound third, and we need this to be diminished. Now G to B is major. Let's look at that, let's just picture that. G to B is major. G sharp makes the interval smaller, so it's minor, and now we need to make it smaller again and make it diminished, and so we need to bring that top down with a flat, and that is now a diminished third, and that's a compound diminished third. Well, that's the end of that one. I hope that you've found that beneficial. There's still plenty of exercises to look at, so there's more opportunity to learn and revise that. I do hope you found that helpful. If you can visit sharonbill.com and make sure that you look at all the resources that are freely available to you there. If you can give me a like and a subscribe, that'd be fab. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.